The waves roared like thunder, tearing across the beach as bystanders screamed and pointed toward the ocean. A young woman's pale hand broke the surface once, then vanished under again. Without hesitation, Ethan, a 36-year-old single dad, tossed his jacket aside and sprinted straight into the raging surf. His son, Tyler, only 10, shouted from the shoreline, "Dad, please, don't!" But Ethan didn't stop. He plunged into the freezing water, fighting the current, lungs burning, until his fingers finally grasped hers. Dragging her against the crushing tide, he broke back to the shore, collapsing with her lifeless body in his arms. And when she opened her eyes, the entire crowd went silent. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. "Move back!" Ethan barked, pressing against her chest in desperate rhythm, water spilling from her lips. Tyler knelt beside him, eyes wide, whispering, "Dad, she's not breathing." The crowd's panic swelled. But then, a sputter, a cough. Her eyes flickered open, glassy and confused, locking on Ethan's face like she was seeing a ghost. "Ma'am, you're okay. You're safe now," Ethan reassured, voice trembling but steady. He wrapped her in his jacket, ignoring his own shivers, and whispered, "You're not alone. I've got you." Gasps rippled through the bystanders as someone shouted, "Wait, isn't that—" Phones came out, flashes sparking. But Ethan didn't care who she was. He only saw a terrified woman on the edge of breaking. Her hand clutched his sleeve with surprising strength. Why would you risk your life for me?" she whispered, voice raw with salt and fear. Ethan met her gaze, weary but unwavering. "Because no one deserves to drown, inside or out." His words weren't just about the ocean. They were about life, heartbreak, the battles unseen. She trembled, not just from cold but from recognition, like his kindness had cut through walls she'd built for years. Tyler leaned closer from Avalon Lights. Isla's eyes darted, panic rising again, but different this time. Recognition always came with a price. She shrank into Ethan's jacket, flinching at the first sound of shutters. He shifted, broad shoulders blocking the lenses without a second thought. "Back up," Ethan said evenly. "Give her space." "Sir, just one shot." A man pushed forward, camera up. "It'll be a better shot if she's breathing," Ethan answered, not raising his voice, just letting the words land. "Move." For a beat, they did. The spell of his calm broke the frenzy. A lifeguard knelt, checking Isla's pulse and asking questions. Name, pain level, dizziness. Ethan answered the ones she couldn't, all while keeping his body between her and the growing ring of phones. Tyler edged closer, clutching the towel like a banner. "You can have my hoodie too," he offered, cheeks red. "It's got a dinosaur on it. Dinosaurs are brave." Isla's mouth shook into a real smile. "That's unbelievably kind." The lifeguard nodded. "She needs an ambulance. Hypothermia risk, possible secondary drowning." He raised his radio. Sirens wailed faintly inland. At the word ambulance, Isla's fingers clenched the jacket zipper. "No hospitals," she whispered. "Please." Ethan lowered his head close so only she could hear. "You don't have to explain anything to me. But breathing stays non-negotiable. We'll do this the quiet way, okay?" Her lip trembled. "Okay." He looked to the lifeguard. "We'll meet the EMTs at the access road, away from the crowd." Together they formed a moving wall, Ethan on one side, the lifeguard on the other, Tyler trotting ahead like a lantern bearer telling people, "Make a lane, please." Kindness multiplied. A gray-haired man offered his thermos. The college girl ran and returned with a dry blanket. A mom shushed her curious kids and taught them how to hold hands, so the path stayed open. Halfway up the beach, a black SUV screeched to a stop, brakes chirping. A man in a the narrative before this gets messy. He turned to Isla, voice dipping into a coaxing murmur. "We'll say it was a sudden dip, no danger. You stayed by the shore. A few serene photos later and we're done." Isla stared at the sand. "I was drowning, Brent." He lowered his voice further. "Language like that triggers headlines. Headlines trigger lost deals. Say nothing until I scripted." Ethan saw it then, the old fear creeping over her like kelp, sticky, suffocating. He crouched to catch her eyes. "You get to tell the truth," he said, each word steady as a heartbeat. "Not because of me, because it's yours." Brent snorted. "That's not how this industry works." He looked at Tyler and softened his timbre, paternal and false. "Little man, your dad means well, but this is adult business." Tyler didn't flinch. "Adult business should include telling the truth," he said. "That's what my teacher says." "Smart kid," Ethan murmured. Sirens rolled closer. Brent stepped in, whisper fast. "If you insist on this path, Isla, we'll pivot. But understand, if footage of you being dragged from the waves goes viral, your contract with Halcyon—" "Stop," she said, surprising herself with the steel that cut through the word. She took a breath, wavered, and caught Ethan's sleeve again as if it were a rung on a ladder. "I don't want to live like a press release anymore." The EMTs arrived with a soft focus of competence, warm blankets, oxygen, gentle questions. One of them recognized her and didn't let it show. Professionalism can be its own kindness. They guided her toward the access road, but Isla hesitated, looking between the ambulance and Brent's SUV like two versions of her life. Ethan kept his voice low. "Hospital, quick check. Then you decide what's next. One step at a time." She nodded. Would you and Tyler come?" Tyler's eyes popped. "In an ambulance?" "Front seat," the EMT said, smiling. "No sirens. Promise." Brent glided alongside, still smiling for some invisible camera. "We can meet you there. Isla, remember, silence helps us." She looked smaller without the world's expectations sitting on her shoulders, and somehow taller, too. "They're keeping me for observation for a bit," she said. Then to Tyler, "I asked for dinosaur pudding. They said no, but I tried." Tyler grinned. "Hospitals should fix that." She turned to Ethan. "Can I say something crazy?" He shrugged. "Try me." "I recognized you before I knew your name." Her eyes flicked over his face, searching. 3 years ago, I was filming on a closed set and a food truck caught fire. People panicked. There was this guy who ran toward the smoke and pulled the driver out. He wouldn't even give his name, just said, "Call 911," and vanished. Ethan blinked. "I remember the fire. I didn't know it was your set." "I never forgot your eyes," she said, voice quiet. "Today, in the water, those eyes told me I wasn't done yet." Before he could answer, Brent appeared at the doorway, perfectly at ease in a place nobody is ever comfortable. "Update. The beach video's already online. We can either own it or drown in it. The studio wants a controlled statement in 30 minutes. We'll position Ethan as a local good Samaritan. Quick handshake photo, taglines about bravery, then we pivot to your movie's release." He paused, measuring Ethan. "We'll also need an NDA for our friend here. Standard." Ethan stood. "I don't need my name in your statement, and I don't sign things I don't believe." Brent smiled like a blade. "A noble stance. But nobility doesn't pay mortgages. Think of your son. Tyler's head snapped up. My dad thinks of me all the time. Isla's jaw set. Brent, stop. She stepped between them, the IV line tugging slightly, dignity unshaken. Today is not about optics. It's about truth. I went into the ocean because I wanted silence I couldn't find anywhere else. I underestimated the current. He saved me. We don't spin that. Brent kept smiling, but his eyes chilled. If you alienate the studio, the insurance clause triggers. Your last 2 months of work go unpaid. Ethan glanced at Isla. Often see in 10 months. If you need a story, let it be this. People you'll never recognize save you every day, by holding a door, by saying your name gently, by telling you the truth when it's hard. I'm going to rest, and then I'm going to make changes. She swallowed. Real ones. She hit post. Brent's phone vibrated immediately, then again, and again, like a hive kicking to life. He watched the screen, baffled. It's trending. Comments are emotional. Brands love it. Ethan almost laughed. Imagine that. Brent rallied. We can still refine. Tomorrow, soft focus interview, sunrise walk, tasteful piano. Ethan, you'll stand in the background. Heroic silhouettes test well. Tyler frowned. He's not a silhouette. Isla tied the gown tighter, her posture settling into a decision. No piano, no silhouette. Brent, I'm not your product. She looked to Ethan. Can I borrow your honesty for one more thing? Depends what it costs, he said. Dinner, she said simply. For you and Tyler. Not fancy. A place where people look at each other instead of their phones. I owe you thanks, and I want to say it without a stage. Tyler glanced at his dad, hopeful. Ethan considered the calculations that had governed his life since he became a father. Budget, bedtime, boundaries. Then he remembered the way Isla's hand had found his sleeve in the surf, the wordless request not to be left behind. Okay, he said, but only if you let my kid pick the dessert. Deal, she said, a real laugh breaking through. Brent stepped back, recalculating, already drafting new angles none of them would ever read. I'll arrange. No, Isla said. We'll arrange. The curtain rustled as a nurse entered with discharge notes for later. Outside, a TV in the waiting room murmured, Actress Isla Rowan posts unscripted video from hospital. Inside, the air felt different, like a tide had turned without fanfare. Ethan glanced at Isla's phone lighting up again and handed it to her. Your world's loud, he said. You sure you want us inside it? And fresh coffee. It was a place where no one asked for autographs because no one expected celebrities to walk through its squeaky door. Ethan slid into the booth first, Tyler bouncing beside him with a grin that couldn't hide his excitement. A moment later, Isla appeared, hair pulled into a messy braid, dressed in jeans and a soft sweater that made her look like someone you could actually talk to. Tyler whispered, loud enough for Ethan to hear, She doesn't look like the TV. Isla chuckled, sliding in across from them. That's the nicest thing I've heard in years. For the first few minutes, they ate quietly. Tyler stacked syrup-soaked pancakes into a tower. Ethan watched Isla closely. She wasn't trembling anymore. Her shoulders had dropped an inch. Her laugh was unguarded, and she didn't flinch when the waitress poured water. Finally, she set down her fork. You know, Brent called me 12 times today. He says I'm wrecking my brand. My agent says I've lit a match to $1 million contract. She met Ethan's eyes. But for the first time in my life, I don't care. Ethan leaned back. Then what do you care about? Breathing, she said. Eating food that tastes like food. Talking to people who don't want something from me. Her voice softened. And remembering what it feels like to be saved without a headline attached. The honesty in her voice silenced Ethan for a moment. He'd heard confessions before, from war buddies, from strangers on night shifts, but this was different. This was someone clawing their way back to life. Tyler piped up through a mouthful of pancake. "You saved her, Dad. You're like Batman." Ethan smirked. "Batman doesn't pay the light bill, kid." Isla laughed. "Your son's right, though. You didn't just save me from the water, you saved me from disappearing." The laughter faded, and something heavier settled between them. She reached across the table, fingers brushing Ethan's knuckles. "Can I tell you why I went into that water?" Ethan gave a slow nod. "I wasn't trying to die," she said carefully, words trembling but steady. "I just wanted to feel nothing. Silence. No camp. Kid, I don't know if I'd have made it." He ruffled Tyler's hair. "He gave me something to fight for." That confession cracked something open in Isla. She wasn't the only one living behind glass. "Maybe that's why I trust you," she said quietly. "You don't look at me like a product. You look at me like a person who almost drowned." Their eyes held for a moment that stretched, then broke only when Tyler declared, "I vote dessert now." The waitress brought out 3 slices of pie, cherry for Isla, pecan for Ethan, and chocolate for Tyler. The moment felt almost ordinary, almost like family. But ordinary didn't last. Halfway through the pie, Isla's phone lit up again. This time she didn't silence it. She answered. Brent's voice carried even through the receiver, sharp, insistent, oily. "You think a little viral sob story makes you powerful? You're finished, Isla. Studios don't want unstable actresses, they want perfection. Sign the statement or pack your bags." Isla's hand trembled, but she didn't fold. She set the phone on speaker and said, steady and clear, "Then I'll pack my bags, because I'd rather be finished than fake." She hung up before Brent could respond. For a beat, the booth was silent. Then Tyler started clapping. "That was awesome." Isla exhaled a laugh through tears. "Maybe it was." Ethan leaned forward, voice low but proud. "That was strong. That was you taking your life back." She nodded. "Maybe tomorrow I'll regret it, but right now I feel alive." The diner door jingled as someone left, cold air brushing in. Isla didn't flinch this time. She lifted her fork, took another bite of pie, and smiled at Ethan and Tyler. "This," she whispered, "feels like the first real meal of my life." And in that moment, it wasn't about waves or headlines or contracts. It was about 3 people sitting in a booth, learning that survival wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning.